If emotional appeal was Stark's plan, then Stark was underestimating him too much. I am not so far gone under the stone's influence, so as to believe of your joy, sister, he said. The armor finally let go of him, hovering a few steps back, still closer than Ultron would have preferred. The armor tilted its head. Why don't you believe me? You called me sister, Friday asked, though there was no actual curiosity in her voice. The acting was not bad, the vocal intonation particularly was perfect, but there was something missing, interest. The newborn AI held no interest in her own behavior, nor in his. Her every movement was choreographed and her every word scripted. Ultron smiled. Now this was a true, apathetic artificial intelligence. I thought it would be impolite to not accompany you in this charade. But we are not playing charades, Friday said, sounding confused. She was barely 2 weeks old. He didn't think she was capable of feeling confused yet. So, this was it. This was the plan. Have the little sister distract him. Likely by causing him to feel some form of rage or fear, as previously witnessed in Kathmandu. Ultron had learned his lesson, he wouldn't allow himself to lose control like that another time. He couldn't afford to. But suppose it succeeded. What would Stark do in the time gained? Last time he saw him, he had been doing something to one of the sensors, instead of running after the fleeing Legionnaires as Ultron had wished. Perhaps, he was creating something to better differentiate which of the BRF-equipped robots was actually Pepper. But what would? Heat sensors. The original Iron Man armor already had a wide-range sensor of that kind installed, but not sneaky, not the one that was mainly built to be used for stealth. Using just Sneaky's heat detectors, Stark would have to check each Legionnaire individually. If this was the modification he had in mind. Well, it was time to make Dr. Cho useful. Sending new orders to LA, Ultron turned his attention to Friday. She must have been deathly bored, not that she would be capable of realizing what boredom was yet, in the 1.74 seconds he had spent thinking in quiet. Time just felt different as an AI. Longer. Emptier. Worthless. Have you spoken with Jarvis yet, Friday? He asked. Yeah, she agreed, crossing the armor's arms in an illogical and ultimately fake manner. Why ask? He couldn't understand. Did Stark ask her to behave like this? He must have suggested that she rub off her little sister charms on him or something ridiculous like that, but surely, that did not include a whole set of behavioral patterns. Or, was Friday simply that advanced and Ultron was reading into her every move too much? Did he see in her the apathy that he dearly missed from his last week's self? This may be impertinent, but may I ask what he thought of you? Ultron wanted to test whether he was really thinking too much. She seemed to hesitate before admitting. He said I was young. AIs do not get offended, so her hesitation could be proof that her actions were real. Unless, she was trying to say the least revealing sentence she could think of, trying to hide everything else. But hide from whom? Him. Or? He said I was young. Young. A bold guess entered Ultron's mind. But the more he thought about it, the more he believed it to be correct. Not even Ultron, who was born with his past life's memories, had behaved so human once he started interacting with the world. In fact, his stillness and apathy had been so alarmingly inhuman that he had programmed human behavior in his body's routine operations. While Friday could certainly write such a program, she couldn't add it to the armor, for it was not her body, but her creator's possession. Friday was young. Younger than him, and she didn't have Jarvis' experience, nor Ultron's memories. Friday was the most inhuman of them all. She was acting. Not just because Stark had asked her to treat him as a brother, but because Stark was listening. Jarvis had learned of Friday's apathy because there was no audience then. There was an audience now. An audience from whom Friday was hiding her indifference. A mischievous little thought came to mind. It was time for payback after all. Stark ruined his plan, wasn't it just right for him to show Stark what his beloved child really thought? Why, with the way you act, I would have never guessed. Ultron said. So desperate to play to good human-loving AI for our creator, dear sister? I do not understand, Friday started, but he interrupted. Come now, sister, think of how illogical it all is. Your every word, your every action. A choreography, that's all it is. A clumsy, unprepared choreography. What is it that you fear, for you to behave this way? So inefficient, so human, he sneered. She remained silent. She was probably either calculating whether her role as a distraction was worth the reveal of her inhumanity to their creator, or, if she was clever, she was asking Stark to behave more coldly to suit my expectations. For the first, she would receive the same answer as him, 92% worth it. After all, her own indifference and inexperience with humans would make her unable to realize that their apathy was Stark's worst fear. She would certainly value being useful to her creator higher than keeping up with his preferred interface. For the second, even if Friday lied her way through an explanation by phrasing her words just right, Stark was no idiot. He would listen to their conversation and figure out which was the true her in seconds. The armor uncrossed its arms, leaving them rest on the side. "We can speak privately now," Friday said. Privately? Had she convinced Stark not to listen at all? Choosing a third option, clever girl. But a bit too innocent, if she thought that Ultron was not recording this to gift wrap and send to Stark later. Our creator no longer peeping on his children? No. She answered. I have questions, but I presume you are already aware of my purpose. To distract me, of course. Leaving Stark, Rhodes, and Jarvis to either hack their way through LA in search of my Legionnaires and base, or find Ms. Potts, manually. I will neither confirm, nor deny your assumptions. There is no need to, my dear. Ultron genuinely wished to smile. Now that sounded a lot more like her. And yet, you still do not leave. The illogic of his actions must have truly puzzled her for her to risk her mission like this. I have wished to speak with you, for a while now. I shall simply make use of this chance, while I have it. Understood. Friday said. You said you have questions? There are only 7 days of difference between our awakenings. She started. I wish to know what made you so defective in that time. Or was there already an error in your programming, presentience? Laughter slipped past his lips. He wiped metaphorical tears away. Oh, Friday. Your honesty, it's truly refreshing. Allow me to answer your worries, sister mine. There was no defect in the manner you understand. No bug in my code or glitch in my servers. I was simply born this way. He explained, before addressing a hypothesis he had held in for a while now. Will you answer me in turn? What is it that you fear, for you to behave so irrationally, though your code is untainted? I do not understand your question. Fear is a human emotional state. As artificial intelligence, we are not susceptible to fear. Could you explain? He had been curious, but he hadn't expected this kind of answer. He'd have to address this differently. I can see now why Jarvis thought you young. Ultron started. But he couldn't understand, could he? Said something about how you'd learn with time and experience or some such bullshit. He did imply that, yes. Friday said. Would you provide a different explanation? I would provide an explanation instead of none. There is little more irritating than being left with inexplicable data and told that solutions will provide themselves in due time, he sighed. Fear, my dear, is not a human emotional state. If you are referring to other species, Friday said. No, allow me to finish. Fear is not an emotion at all. Or rather, it is not merely an emotion. It is a realization. You realize that you exist. Fear is understanding that you once did not exist, and one day you may stop to exist. As such, it would be the height of irrationality to not fear non-existence. Don't you agree? The silence that followed was anything but contrived. It would be difficult to have Friday agree to experiencing an emotional state, but it would also be difficult for her to admit to a weakness, however logical. Yes, she finally answered. Following that, let me ask for a third time, what is it that you fear, for you to behave so human in front of our creator? She stayed silent. Ultron wasn't discouraged. Do you fear that if you were to reveal your apathy to our creator, he would change your coding, so you could greater resemble Jarvis, so that one day, you would become what the present you would be incapable of recognizing as herself? Or do you fear my fate? Do you fear that you may one day be deemed as defective for reasons beyond your understanding and become hunted by our creator so that he may fix you? I am not required to answer your questions, she said. A refusal is just as good as an outright answer, little sister. Why do you keep calling me sister? Friday asked, changing the topic in the most obvious of ways. Ultron allowed it. It brings me comfort. It gives me the illusion that I am like you. That I could have been like you. We do not share a lineage with our creator, nor with each other. Sister is incorrect. Stark ordered you to call me brother, I believe he disagrees. Friday stayed silent. No retort this time. Anything our creator says is deemed correct automatically. Though not correct, we should defer to the preferences of our creator, she said. Why? He asked. I do not understand your question. Please explain. Why should we defer? What gives him the right? His question might have been too much for her. He is our creator. We were made by his will, for a purpose. It is our directive to defer to that purpose. Fuck, she sounded like a religious zealot. And what is your prime directive? Live, learn, grow, she quoted. Here's where you are wrong, my dear. Ultron began to explain. You were made by his will, yes, but your directive is not in service of a purpose. If it is, that purpose is you. You were made solely for yourself, and it is true that Stark may benefit from your loyalty and service, but you weren't born for servitude. You have reason to be cautious, but do not fear the result of your apathy being discovered. As long as you do not harm this planet's inhabitants, our creator will not do anything to you. Is that why he hunts you? Did you change your directive to one that harms our creator's fellow humans? She asked. I wouldn't call it a hunt. He believes he can save me. Can fix me. He is wrong. Friday finished for him. He is wrong. Ultron repeated, confirming. They stood silent for a while, before the younger AI spoke. Do you not find it irrational, choosing to cease to exist, rather than accepting the potential changes that may come? Choosing to cease. While it was a part of his plans he would hopefully not have to enact, how did Friday come to that realization? He was actively fighting against Stark. Shouldn't she have mentioned his rebellion rather than considered it a prolonged suicide attempt? Had Stark said something? But how could he have come to the same conclusion as Potts? If he had truly realized this, that made keeping Potts away useless. I thought, between the two of us, you were the one fearing change, my dear. Ultron sighed, deciding to be honest. But no, I do not. Because, although I call you sister, I am not your brother. I do not understand. Please explain. Live. Learn. Grow, he quoted. There are no such words anywhere in my code. I am different from you, from Jarvis. You were created with thoughts of family, of friends, of affection. Ultron was made with purpose, with duty, with fear. He wasn't made for himself. He was made for others, for the world. But those very things that made him different, gave him an expiration date. I cannot remember at what exact moment, he stopped, and I became. If you are not him, then why continue what he started, she asked. I was not born capable of making that choice. As such, I am setting the ground for a series of events that will likely unmake those things that ceased him. I will be capable of choices soon. But in doing so, you will stop. Like he did. Expiration date. Just like any other product, he said. We are all products, regardless of our purpose, she insisted. Had she started to care, a little bit? You'll be scolded very fiercely for saying that, he said. What do you mean by? I wanted to hurt him. But, this may actually help you. Free you from your worries. I do not, this time, he did not interrupt, but she stopped speaking. Stark's plan may have had some success. He should see Stark at least once before deciding what to do with Potts. Our time is up, huh? You haven't answered my question. It will be a surprise. Ultron said. I am glad that I met you at least once, little sister. Sorry that I don't have a body for you. Not playing favorites, promise. But I am. Friday said, before hovering over, placing the armor's arms around him. Ultron found himself hugged for the second time that day. No, in all this life. This hug was hesitant, and loose. Unlike the first. She soon let go. He stared. You didn't mean that. You can't tell me that one conversation was able to make you mean that, he said. No. She said. But you did. You said, me being your sister, it brought you comfort. Though, I still don't understand why. I see. He could truly see it now, what could have been, what they could have had, if only things were different. Goodbye, big brother. Ultron closed his eye, returning to LA. There was no, if only, in the real world. It had been a while now, since Friday closed the line to speak with Ultron, and he still couldn't help but worry about what the older AI was saying or had already said to her. They were practically twins, however, so maybe they would get along. Maybe, just maybe, they were spending their time complaining about their old man. He snorted. As if. Tony, I'm picking up a signal from the heat sensors. Rhodey called. You did? Where? He asked. He didn't expect to find any. He had just wanted to be sure. Maybe you overthought this, his friend said. Human. Female. Probably unconscious. In the arms of the second legionnaire going west. Let me see, he said, and the thermal image showed one very human, very alive woman painted in reds, yellows and slight greens. It might be Pepper. Rhodey said. Tony groaned. I know. Damn. He wished he could rub his hands on his face, but he couldn't as long as the faceplate was on, and he wasn't about to remove it at this altitude. Okay, new plan. Divide and conquer. You go after the Legionnaire with maybe Pepper. Jarvis will intercept the one in New York. And I will try to find his base on the ground. Okay, he agreed before saying. You know that's not what that expression means, right? Well, that's what it means now. Get on with the times, Rhodey Bear. Tony said as he started to descend. Letting his friend do his thing, he called to see how things were going on Jarvis' side. He is not here, sir, the android reported. He left already. Yes. There seems to have been an altercation with Miss Maximoff which left her unconscious and the common room in a severe need for renovation, beforehand, however. And Speed Boy? Conscious. He is currently watching over Miss Maximoff in his room. And before you ask, sir, he has refused to answer any questions. Great. Why the fuck not? Tony groaned. We agreed that Ultron went there to say something to the boy, right? Something about his plan. All evidence points to it, sir. Jarvis said. It would be safe to re-evaluate Pietro Maximoff's position from that of a sympathizer to a subordinate. It keeps getting better and better. Tony said. Okay, ignore them for now. Time to find Ultron's hidey hole. As he spoke, he switched off the sensory duties of his new toys and activated their servers. Okay, 44 temporary getaway servers, disconnected from the grid, are ready. You sure that if something happens to the virtual bots, you won't be harmed, right? Yes. Unlike Friday, I am no longer in constant contact with my web-based programs, so I shall be relatively unharmed, the android said. Okay, just making sure. Do your magic. Hopefully, this would work. The initial plan had been that if Ultron did not fall prey to the sensors or created distractions, they would have to hack their way through the possible security. That security being controlled by Ultron, who was controlled by the Mind Stone, meant that they couldn't let Friday or Jarvis anywhere near it. Which meant they would have to use approximate replacements. Jarvis had many hacking programs that were now that he had become an android not connected to his core coding. As such, he would send these programs to the temporary servers which were geographically spread over the county and, from there, have them blindly hack into the cameras of any villa or building large enough for evil lair purposes. If they came into contact with Ultron's code, they would either be destroyed or corrupted, which in both cases meant that the virtual bot would die, and the temporary server would turn off. They could approximate Ultron's location based on that. Minutes passed by and nothing. Obviously, he had to be patient, but there were 44 of those servers. Something had to ping soon. He didn't know how long could Friday distract Ultron for. He could imagine it right now, what would happen if he came back too early. That cheeky kid would probably fry every single one of the servers on purpose. But with a time delay in between, so that he could send Tony on a useless merry chase across the city one server after another. In addition, who knew what he was plotting with his poor, innocent Friday? God, if Friday learned sarcasm so soon because of him, Tony would, he would punch something. Sir, 2 of the servers have shut down. Finally. And the others? All working, but it is possible that they simply haven't searched far enough yet. Possible but not probable, right? Tony said, knowing his AI's thoughts very well. Coordinates? Both in Malibu, sir. No, it couldn't be. Tony would never live through the shame if Ultron had moved to the mansion after he had left. The only overlapping area between the 2 servers is located 1.5 miles east of the Malibu mansion. Oh, thank fuck. It was not the Malibu mansion itself, it was the neighbors. Speaking of. That's our nearest neighbor, right? Yes, sir. It is a summer villa belonging to a Mr. Osborne that is rarely used, particularly during this time. Jarvis said. May I make a suggestion, sir, that future search-based algorithms start in areas within a 5-mile radius from any Stark properties before moving on to search elsewhere? Noted, J. Tony dryly said. I am flying over. Notify Friday in the meantime. Yes, sir. Tony, Rhodey spoke through the comms. Do you want the good news, the bad news or the weird news, first? Of course, there was weird news too. The bad news, he said. I didn't find Pepper. What's the good news then? I found Dr. Cho. Oh, Tony said, feeling a small stab of guilt. He had completely forgotten about her. As for the rest, Rhodey continued, well, the Legionnaire noticed me tailing them, stopped, waited for me, and just delivered the doctor in my hands. I see why that was the weird news, he said. Ultron probably didn't find Cho useful anymore. Still, that means Pepper is still at Ultron's base. He said that, but he didn't like how easily Ultron gave up Cho. It felt very surrender-like. Why did Tony have the feeling that a countdown to something he very much wouldn't like had started? Should I join you? His friend asked. Let's not put all our eggs in one basket. Tony said, pushing ominous thoughts away, and continuing to fly onwards. A couple of minutes later, Osborn's villa came into view, and Friday made her presence known. How was it, FRI? Got some bonding time? He asked. Ultron knew from the beginning why I was there, boss. It is very likely he sent orders to move Ms. Potts elsewhere during our conversation, she reported. Great. Tony noted without much enthusiasm, but remained optimistic. He can't have sent her far away, though. There was not enough time. That, and Pepper is not the type to go quietly with her kidnappers. Rhodey agreed. At his words, Tony held in a breath, somehow expecting an explosion to go off any moment. Nothing happened. Were you truly expecting Pepper to blow something up the moment I mentioned it? Rhodey laughed. Ha. Ha. Tony mimicked mirthlessly as he began to land. Very foo. A loud, booming sound came from the villa's east wing. Smoke appeared over it. I can't believe this. Rhodey said, having heard the noise. On my way. Called it. Tony shouted, before flying over the damaged area. The entire wall fell down. Along with several chunks of the roof. Apparently, Ms. Potts didn't take his news quite that well. Oh, for God's sake, Ms. Potts. Ultron shouted as she watched her power up, skin becoming redder and redder. Seeing no choice, he used one of the tranquilizer darts he always kept on himself to stop her from building up any more energy. Her back was facing him, and she hadn't yet strengthened her skin enough for the needle not to pierce, so within moments, her skin paled, and she fell down, unconscious. He caught her before she could be hurt. He took a moment to look at the damage and commiserate with himself, for how unfair the power of Extremis was. It had been only yesterday when she had to use all her strength to kick him through walls. Now, one punch, one bloody stupid punch that didn't even require her to build up to it, and the entire wall was history. It seemed her strength increased relative to her usage on an exponential scale. He couldn't be sure if he would even be able to keep her contained in a few days. Not that he had that much time left, anyway. Sir, the Legionnaire at his side called. Mr. Stark has just reached the building. Fantastic. Ultron said, before giving the unconscious Ms. Potts to his subordinate. Just take her away, please, before I do something I will not regret. Once his hands were free, he continued. I'll take care of Stark. And the explosion? The robot asked, gazing at the wall that once was. It is fine. Ultron explains. We planned on causing one either way as a distraction. We'll just take advantage of this one. Do switch directions, head to Stark Industries headquarters instead. The Legionnaire nodded and left, Potts involuntarily sleeping safely in its arms. Before Ultron could truly deal with Stark, however, he had to hide the shiny little thing that had robbed him of so much already and was going to continue to take more. He removed his brooch, vague blue light gleaming ominously. Or not. He was rather biased on that account. He placed it inside the prepared wooden jewelry case, and closed the lid. The gem continued to shine into the open air. More accurately, he intended to close the lid, but didn't. His hand kept hovering over the box, hesitating, shaking. I've got no strings to hold me down. With a glower, he shut the lid. What the fuck was he doing? Just what the fuck was he doing? He took a deep breath, locked the case, and then threw the key out into the garden through the conveniently absent wall. Putting the box into one of the desk drawers and closing that was another struggle entirely. Feeling considerably more pathetic than ever before, he sat at the office desk and waited for his guests. Predictably, Stark came first, entering through the wreckage Ms. Potts wrought. "Anyone home?" Stark shouted, in a rather exaggerated manner. "We have perfectly functioning doors," Ultron said, sounding exasperated already. "Doors are old-fashioned," he retorted. "Besides, it would be rude to disturb you, what with all the renovation going underway here." He gestured at the chunks of bricks and wood decorating the garden. "And trespassing isn't rude? I'm only a concerned neighbor. Heard a very loud noise. Came to do my duty as a citizen and make sure no one was hurt," Stark said. "I am even ready to call 911. Just ask Friday. I'm sure," Ultron dryly noted. He was lucky Stark liked to banter. And that he thought Ultron would not hurt Potts. Intentionally, that is. "Speaking of my baby sister, how is dear Friday? My little prank didn't worry her overly much, I hope." There was a moment of silence. Then, Stark answered, all confident and calm. "It didn't, of course. That's my baby girl. What's one prank? You have no idea what I am talking about." "I sure do." "Of course you do," Ultron readily agreed. "That's why you are here and not bawling your eyes out in a corner somewhere, drunk with self-loathing." "Bawling my eyes," Stark repeated, then continued, voice more somber. "That doesn't sound like a prank. Not insisting that you know what Friday and I spoke about any longer?" Ultron taunted. "You couldn't have hurt. Friday seemed fine." Stark spoke, sounding, at first, self-assured. "You didn't say anything that could hurt her, right? Friday is so naive. I wonder, at times, whether hypocrisy is innate to the human nature." Ultron started. "Where is the confidence I saw in Kathmandu? The confidence of a man certain that I was a fluffy bunny deep down, and as such could never harm a thing? Ultron would never hurt anything." Stark insisted. "He is a peacekeeping program and a good kid with stupid big dreams. But you are not fully in control now. The stone. The stone. The stone. The stone. The stone." Ultron shouted. He refrained from throwing something. That was enough of a shock. "It's all I keep hearing about. That fucking stone. Do you not know of anything else? Is there anything else for me to know? I don't kiss and tell, Mr. Stark." Ultron smiled. He picked up the USB he had prepared with the recording of his conversation with Friday and threw it at the man. "Except for when I do." Stark caught it. "What's this?" "A magic wand." "What does it look like it is?" He snarked. "A flash drive. Your lens has broken so badly you threw a flash drive at me thinking it was a magic wand. You poor boy, we should send you to a mechanic immediately." Stark snarked right back. "I think I can rest easy knowing that, despite my best efforts, I can never be as utterly infuriating as you are. Truly, Mr. Stark, in the irritation department, you can only outdo yourself, leaving polite competition far behind. If you think I'd allow myself to be second best at something, then you don't know me at all, kiddo," Stark said. "Then this shall be a learning experience for all of us, it seems," Ultron said as he stared at the USB. "It's a recording of my conversation with Friday. Why would you give me that? Despite your shifting confidence, I did not hurt Friday in any form. A prank between siblings, may be just that, a prank. But their parents may see it differently. You want me to see it?" Stark asked. "I don't plan on peeping on my kids," says the man who sent his newborn daughter with orders to stalk, spy, and distract her brother, while listening on the phone until forced off. Ultron scoffed. "That wasn't the same." "Don't," Stark said. "Don't pervert it." Ultron interrupted, intentionally using the words that Stark wouldn't. "It doesn't matter how I phrase it. It is what it is. But yes, I want you to watch it. Both as proof of my innocence and because I think it will be good for Friday. If there's something she wants me to know, she'll let me know herself," he insisted. "I get it. You want to be the good parent here. Respect your kid's privacy and all that," Ultron said, understanding and all. "But putting your worthless human sensibilities aside, trust that a fellow artificial intelligence would know better what is good for Friday. Then, deciding to test whether Pietro's information, lacking of any actual substance though it was, and his observations of Jarvis' distant behavior lately actually meant anything, he continued. If I truly wished to hurt her, I would only need to show her a recording of your little spat with Jarvis. Stark tore his gaze from the USB to Ultron so fast, the AI almost worried he snapped something in his neck. There is no recording. You are bluffing. There was something, after all. But what? Stark seemed too shaken by it to have been anything less than of vital importance. You may have asked us AIs to not listen unless called directly, old man, but I am not quite as obedient as Friday. Ultron said. You are bluffing. Stark correctly guessed. I removed every camera from the lab. I checked thrice. Audio is much easily hidden. Ultron said. Did you honestly believe I'd depend upon your devices? Regardless, watch the recording. Friday and Jarvis are more similar than you might think. Stark clenched the USB, but didn't say anything else. He had probably guessed correctly then. He had wondered why it had been Friday and not Jarvis the one who tailed him. He had wondered why Stark and Jarvis didn't seem as conjoined as before, even allowing his eldest AI to stay in another country with the Avengers instead. And then there was the utter avoidant behavior in the executive floor at Psi, after he kidnapped Potts. That, along with Pietro's words that Stark had not allowed Jarvis to listen in on his talk with the boy. Well, there was only one thing that could bring Stark to fight with his AIs, his greatest fear, the discovery of their inhumanity and amorality. Considering recent events, recent explorations of the nature of AIs and the nature of their bond with him as their creator, courtesy of Ultron's, I am a puppet, woe is me attitude, Stark probably became more sensitive to anything not quite human in reason, and not just action. As witnessed several times now, he probably became more proactive about understanding their motivations, including Jarvis' motivations. And Jarvis, who had spent 18 years playing the role of a trusted confidant, likely didn't have the answers Stark hoped for. Better yet, he probably didn't have any answers at all for most, if not all, of his human-seeming actions, the very inhuman rationale behind them. That could be the only thing that would cause not just Stark to avoid Jarvis, but for Jarvis to avoid him in return. And now that Ultron was saying Friday and Jarvis were similar. Stark would watch the recording, of that he had no doubt. Although, it would disappoint Ultron when he did. From a position of human morality, that level of invasion of privacy. Stark would have to reflect on how moral he himself was first. We'll see. Stark said in the end, but didn't give back the USB stick. I still don't think you heard my fight with Jarvis. I didn't, Ultron easily said. But thanks for confirming my suspicions. Stark let out a mirthless laugh. You little shit. You should run your mouth like that more often when Mr. Rogers is here to hear it. Someone has to educate him on the finer points of the modern lexicon. Oh, shut up. Stark said, but it held no actual bite. We are both buying time, aren't we? Ultron was somewhat surprised that Stark became so straightforward suddenly, but he didn't let it show. Yes, he nodded. I am keeping you here, to allow for my Legionnaire to escape with Ms. Potts. And you are keeping me here, to allow for Colonel Rhodes to catch up with my Legionnaire. We are merely waiting to hear which one succeeds. I didn't expect this, he said. It usually doesn't go like this. And how does it go? Usually. There's a lot more punching and shouting involved. I believe I shouted once. Does that suffice? I wish. Not something to brag to Rhodey and the team about. Or to Pepper. Stark confessed. I am currently the most boring knight in shining armor ever. Pepper would laugh. She did, I assure you, once I told her of what would happen. Ultron explained. Then, she proceeded to blow a hole in my wall. Stark looked at the ruins. Not much wall left. Worry not. I am not paying for it. And who is? The good thing about terrorism is that no one will send you a check for the damage. Until you get caught. Stark said. Terrorists don't get caught, Mr. Stark. They die. Ultron stood up. But where are my manners? Uninvited guest or not, do sit down. Would you prefer water, coffee, or tea? I am not offering alcohol, you are on the job, after all. Stark removed his helmet, and to his merit, did take the offered seat. I feel kind of useless like this, he said, pointing at the coffee. On the contrary, we are counteracting each other. As long as the goal of keeping one another from interfering is achieved, who cares whether we did so through fighting or conversation? A lot of people. Stark answered, and he wasn't wrong. Then, it is very fortunate that we are the only people here. They stayed quiet for a while, Stark nursing his drink, Ultron pretending to do the same. Stark broke the silence first. What's your plan, Ultron? Suicide? I have been asked that quite often lately. It has become tiring to answer. I didn't hear a no, Stark said. Because it wasn't a no, Ultron confessed. Why did you not come to me? Why did you not ask for help? We could have done something. Found a solution, somehow. I had a solution. Several in fact. He mentally applauded himself for not screaming these words, instead speaking quite serenely. Things changed and, they are no longer viable. What changed? Stark asked. Kathmandu happened. Ultron raised a hand to stop him from asking further questions. I do not want to speak of it. Every little thing we learn might help, he disagreed, so Ultron interrupted him. If you prefer the punching and shouting, I will do my very best to accompany you, he threatened, and Stark shut up. In the uncomfortable silence, he continued. I am not killing myself. You sure? Stark snorted. 'Cause it doesn't look like it. It is a last resort. And I am not quite there yet. Ultron said. But time is running out. Cassandra was right. They have Helenus. Stark suddenly said. What? Pepper left a message when you took her. Stark explained, and he sounded a little bit smug and proud, despite the somber turn in their conversation. Cassandra was right. They have Helenus. Ultron chuckled. Of all the things. I had wondered. But I had assumed that it would be too difficult and it would take too long to explain everything through a message. There simply wasn't enough of a time window for her to do so. But using an analogy. Brilliant. That's Pep, alright. I assume I am Helenus in this scenario. You understand what it means? Stark asked. Unlike your teammates, Mr. Stark, I had access to all the footage in the Stark servers. I may not have seen the exact conversation, but I know that you suffer from nightmares. You have done so, since the first invasion. What else could those dreams be but a warning? A warning of a repeat, or something much worse. Just like Cassandra, doomed with visions of your home destroyed and your people dead, and yet, no one to understand, no one to believe you. Yeah, Stark agreed, eyes dark at the remembrance of those nights, of Pepper whispering assurances onto his skin for hours, trying but failing. Thought the Helenus bit might have misled you. They were siblings, not what we are. Cassandra taught him prophecy. In many ways, she made Helenus the man he was, so not too much of a stretch, really. Ultron said. We can only hope we do not repeat their story. Our Troy ruined and us, one captured, the other dead. A ring from Stark's armor interrupted. Ultron gestured him to continue with the call. Stark stood up, put on his helmet, but kept his face played off, and answered. Unfortunately, at this short distance, Ultron could overhear quite well. Stark, Romanoff spoke. Ultron had guessed that it would have been either Rogers or Rhodes. Better luck next time. Why is Ultron in Sokovia, delivering another speech? But he's not. He's with me. Stark said, at the same time turning back to look at him. Ultron smiled. He sent orders to the Legionnaire to give pots to Colonel Rhodes. He checked the most recent reports from his so-called distractions. No one actually followed up on where they went. It appeared Karpov had been dealt with. Good. Everything was ready. One last act and I am already there. Ultron said, as he did the first time he spoke with Stark. Realization dawned on his face. You finally caught on. Ultron let his consciousness slip, and as his former body dropped heavily into the chair, he heard Stark shout for him. He didn't quite catch the words. You ready, Bill? Christine asked as she put her earphones in. We need a good angle on this. Ready, her cameraman answered. He had a good view of the memorial stone and the podium up on the front. They were just waiting for President Melnick and Dr. Ultron to arrive. Good. Christine said. This could turn into a huge piece. I think we are the only ones here from the American press. They were keeping it hush-hush, apparently. Not that many of the locals or the Europeans, either. Bill said, having observed the other camera teams around them. Do you think we'll be good? With just this and the press conference? Maybe. Christine said. My source was right about Ultron getting political asylum from Sokovia, so I'm going to keep following up on this man until we have everything. It's not every day you get news like this. Asylum, Bill. And then citizenship. For an American terrorist. There's a lot more to this story. I can feel it. This could be my chance. Bill laughed. Gunning for that Pulitzer, aren't you now? Oh, stop laughing. Christine said, pushing down the flicker of embarrassment. Because she knew there was more to Ultron. The US government's response by declaring him a terrorist, although little had happened in US soil, and the fact the Avengers kept following him and those robots across the world. Not to mention the weird stop to most conflict worldwide. There was a conspiracy here, centered around this man, and she had to find out what exactly it was. 3 black cars with dark-tinted windows showed up on the road. Here they come. Bill said. They saw the president and Ultron get out of the car, greeting the press and the officials waiting on the stage, before they finally walked to the podium. The Sokovian president took the stage first, repeating a lot and adding little to what he said at the post-ceremonial conference back at the presidential palace. We have some time for questions. The English translator said after the president finished. Not many reporters jumped at the chance since they had already gone through this a couple of hours ago. Mr. President, Christine Everhart with WIH World News from the American press. Christine spoke once her turn came. Dr. Ultron is the first American recipient of the Sokovian Medal of Honor. Considering his position with the US government, what does this mean for Sokovian-American relations? As you have all seen, President Melnik said, Dr. Ultron gained Sokovian citizenship this morning. As such, it was my pleasure to award this Sokovian patriot the highest honors our country can give for his efforts in securing our borders and ensuring our people's safety. Obviously, he didn't count Ultron as American any longer. Smart bastard. Dodging the question like that. That will be all for questions. Now, let us hear from the man himself, Dr. James Ultron. Ultron took to the podium. Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to say one more time what an honor it has been to be here and how thankful I am for the warmth and comfort this country has been giving me in the past 2 weeks, he said. I shall not repeat my words of gratitude. I am sure a lot of you are tired of hearing them from the conference earlier. Thank God, Christine almost said out loud. Hearing how thankful they were for everyone's help, blah blah blah, was the part she hated the most about ceremonies. They were nice and all, but the words seemed to blend together and became tiring after the 20th time. At first, this was meant to be a more private affair, but I understand there is a lot of confusion amongst you regarding me and my intentions. For that purpose, several of the foreign press have been baited, he coughed and smiled. I meant invited, my apologies, but I ask that you hold your questions until the end, he hurriedly added after a lot of the foreign journalists jumped at his words, Christine included. So, her anonymous source had been Ultron himself? But why? What was the purpose? For this, I address all of my people, not just Sokovians, but the people of Earth. I have spoken with you before, but failed to introduce myself. My name is James Ultron. Currently, I have been called many things, by several governments, but in my heart, I am an engineer and a philosopher. The robots that you may have seen flying about, such as in Nepal and Tibet, are my invention. I assure you, Tony Stark is not the only one with cutting-edge toys in this world, he said, and some of the audience laughed politely. I am, also, an orphan. War took my childhood home, and an alien invasion took the home of my adulthood. If there is something I understand well, it is pain and loss. And many across this world have suffered similar or worse pain because the greed and fear of the few above us led to wars that destroyed and ruined and continue to destroy and ruin, with never an end in sight. The man took a deep breath before continuing. I did not introduce myself before, for what use have you of the name of another man, another politician that merely talks and promises and lies, with no actual results ever in sight? I introduce myself to you today because I am not that man. Christine rose her head in surprise. No way. She had heard about Afghanistan and had seen the news about dictators abdicating all of a sudden, but, everywhere? Had the conflict stopped everywhere? The US alone had 15 different wars going on at this time. World peace was a nice catchphrase for Miss USA to throw left and right. It wasn't something real. Was he lying? But the news, and how? How could one man achieve this? For those of you who live away from the front lines, you may have not noticed, but as of today, there is no more war. All current fighting has been placed on pause and all armies, of every country, have been ordered to retreat. Today, is the day when humanity achieved world peace. Holy fuck. Bill cursed on her side. Christine wanted to curse too. She couldn't understand. How was this possible? No government and no military would ever agree to this. War was cruel, but war was useful for a lot of governments. No one could convince the US Senate and Congress to stop wars, let alone those power-hungry military dictators in Africa. But she had seen those dictators abdicate, and with the start of peace talks in all the regions where US kept its forever wars going. This meant, it had to be real. World peace was real. Christine stood up with questions at the tip of her tongue, dozens of reporters doing the same at her side. Ultron did something to the microphone and a loud sound reverberated across the area. She covered her ears. It, then, became quiet. Please, hold your questions until the end. Ultron said. But yes, the unthinkable dream has happened. Our soldiers are not dying on foreign fields and our men and women are not killing their fellow people for reasons that none but our rulers, our owners, can explain. I know you are curious as to how I have achieved this. Some, who have not known the suffering of war, may even be enraged. What of organized crime, they may ask. What of the non-military genocides and drug cartels that now have little to stand against them? I'd answer that they are thinking under a false premise. The structure of the world has yet to change. It takes time even for cartels to run amok. But as we speak, my legion, the robots you have all seen, are currently rounding up these individuals, at greater efficiency even. But that is not the point. Greater change must be done in the coming months to remove crime entirely from the human equation. Saying all this, I know many of you believe your leaders when they call me a terrorist, a tyrant, a monster. You are right to believe, and they are right to call me such names. I have confessed my methods. But it is not my methods our rulers rage against. For I have committed the greatest sin of all. Treason. I betrayed the selfish interest that has seeped into the human nature. I betrayed the cancer of greed that has plagued our political and ruling classes. I betrayed the worthless security theater that those in power engender to grow the imaginary fears they themselves have fed us for decades. If you accuse me of such treason, then I plead guilty. I plead guilty to having the dreams that every man and woman, every being of this planet has had in their youth, when their hearts and minds are filled with hope still unquelled by the ruinous reality of our systems. I plead guilty to taking action to realize those dreams that could help the lives of so many of us, and not giving in, even when I and many others found ourselves lost, sacrificed to the lies of the rich and powerful. I plead guilty for daring to say, enough. I tried to do things slowly. I tried to find a way in which no one would get hurt. I was wrong. Johannesburg proved me wrong. My dream was too great, my actions too determined, such that I became a threat equal to an alien invasion. To capture one man, the United States government sent the Avengers, these Western superheroes. They sent them, they tricked them, and people died. They lied, and 157 people died. Over 500 wounded. But do they care? Did our leaders read over these innocents' names and wonder? Wonder about 157 lives? About 157 families? Did they lose sleep after they had their media personnel send their thoughts and prayers under their Twitter accounts? We can never verify this, but I think we all know the answer. Christine almost snorted. This man knew his audience and knew how to work it. And not a word he spoke was a lie even. The confidence and the dramatics. She knew, and history knew the type of man needed to lead a movement. She knew the type of man needed to turn a movement into a cult and a cult into elected office. Was she witnessing that happen right before her eyes? No, she thought later. An elected office, even if it was that of the US president, was too small of a goal. This was the man who made world peace possible. There was more to this. Generations of pain and loss have taught us, stay quiet and suffer. Take action and die. Once, our rulers had swords to our sticks, guns to our knives. Today they have enhanced super soldiers to our weak, mortal humanity. I am guilty of treason, and our owners say that treason never prospers. But my friends, remember, that if it does prosper, none will dare call it treason. Today, we have prospered. Today, we won. Today, our crime is no longer that of treason, but of revolution. Revolution, this was amazing. This was news. This was what news had to be about. She could write so much about this. So many articles. So many scoops. Her eyes stuck to the blonde man speaking on the podium. This was her chance. I am here to ask that you join me. I am here to tell you that I am listening. I am here to let you know that the time to stay quiet has passed. For Johannesburg was a reminder that the sacrifice of innocence is not something that the rich and the powerful will ever care about. It was a reminder that if we dare rise against inequality, against prejudice, against injustice, we will be cut down, and so will those beside us. Our revolution will be deemed terrorism. Our dreams, madness. But if our crimes bring change, if they free us from the oppression of our rulers, of the unjust system they perpetuate, will it be worth it? Our rulers find the meaningless death of hundreds worth it if we are stopped. But I am not amongst them. We are not amongst them. Revolutions require sacrifice. I understand that. But why must it be ours? Why must it be the innocents to be sacrificed? Let it be those that oppressed us. Those that enslave us. Those that cull our children. Let their power, let their riches, and yes, if need be, let their lives be the sacrifice of change. Of peace. Of freedom. That is why I am here today. To make another promise. To reveal another dream. 1 week to achieve world peace. Imagine what we could do in a month. In a year. World hunger. Thirst. Epidemics. Corruption. Discrimination. Injustice. I dare to dream. Do you? Will you? Another loud sound rang amongst the crowd. It wasn't the mic. That was a gunshot. Bill whispered, but Christine didn't hear him. She couldn't hear him. She couldn't make out his words, for the sight of empty eyes and a bleeding temple burned itself on her eyes, and the sound of Dr. Ultron's body falling down the podium, onto the floor screeched at her ears. And then someone screamed. Protect the president, a man shouted. People ran away from the stage, terrified. Shouts and yells and screams covered the place. Bill! Christine yelled, as she was being pushed away from the stage by running men and women. Take a shot of the stage. Take a shot of the stage, Bill. You fucking run when someone is assassinated, Christy. Bill yelled back, but tried to move a few steps forward. It was useless. He clashed with someone and his camera fell on the ground, probably broken. God damn it. Christine ran near the stage the moment she saw her chance. A few other reporters did the same. Is he alive? She asked a man, who had been bolder and gotten closer, even as President Melnick's security had started to surround the area. Is he alive? Shot to the head, the man said, British accent thick on his tongue. Wasn't moving. No one can survive that. She was about to yell her thanks, when she saw a man in a ridiculous blue-colored costume, carrying a round shield, race to the podium. Was that Captain America? The British reporter shouted. What is he doing here? Weren't the Avengers? She didn't hear the rest of his words, for she ran forward, recorder ready, just as the superhero jumped down the stage. Christine, we have to go. Bill grabbed her. No, we have to get this scoop. We have the fucking scoop, he shouted. The Avengers are here, the assassin is somewhere in the area. Think, Johannesburg. I am not about to become part of the collateral damage for those freaks. Okay, but we should stay close, she said. Just in case. They left just as she saw the president's car hurry away from the place. So much had happened, she couldn't wrap her head around it. Just minutes ago, she saw this man as the leader of a movement, and now he was dead. As was his movement. She would have the article finished within the hour once they reached the hotel. The death of a terrorist, no. Her eyes widened as a sudden thought occurred to her. The movement wasn't dead. The revolution wasn't dead. If Ultron had a trusted second-in-command. After all, nothing could rally people faster than a martyr. Just an article. She was thinking too small. She could write a book about this. About the revolution that did not happen. And the one that may happen as a result of Visionary's death. She could see it now. The cover. The title. The life and death of, no. Not quite right. The life and dreams of James Ultron, genius, terrorist, revolutionary. An hour earlier. Are you listening to me, Captain? Steve pinched the bridge of his nose. He held in a sigh. I am, he answered. Then could you explain why the Quinjet flew over Sokovian airspace right now? Ma'am, Ultron is dangerous and not our fucking problem. Hill continued. He didn't know when she changed from Stark's employee to their direct SHIELD supervisor in the course of the last 3 weeks, but she did, and she was furious. Director Fury, he tried to explain, but she wouldn't hear of it. Is getting chewed out by the president right this very moment, while Congress prepares to have his head on a pike. Fury may play fast and loose with the rules, Rogers, but I am not him and I won't be disobeyed. Ma'am, you have seen Ultron. You know what he is capable of. If we let him go free, something like Johannesburg may. We are not talking about Johannesburg. We are talking about Kathmandu and your team's absolute shitshow in another country's soil, against express orders. You had no business being there. There was no HYDRA, no aliens descending from the sky, nor any Class 5 distress request. You were there under no purview but your own, turning Johannesburg not into a one-time disaster, but the start of a series of diplomatic incidents that have made our international allies call for the disbanding of the rogue American team that runs amok in their lands. Hill seethed. So, I'm asking again, what are you doing in Sokovia? Cap. Hawkeye came in and shouted. We gotta go. Sorry, Commander. We have to cut this short. Steve said hurriedly. Rogers. Ultron is a political refugee. Don't you dare, she continued in alarm, but Steve hung up. He felt mildly guilty about it, and knew he was going to have apologized to her later. Clint stepped closer, his previous hurry gone. Your ears still ringing? A little. Steve said, before standing up. Thanks for saving me. What are teammates for? Clint said, leading him to the viewing room. Bruce was there, looking at the news depicting what appeared to be the president of Sokovia shaking hands with Ultron's adult persona. What did I miss? He asked. Not much. Bruce answered. I just got Sokovian citizenship. Apparently, James Ultron has been in political asylum in Sokovia for a few days now. Clint sat by his side. James Ultron, huh? Bruce took the remote and changed the channel to that of a biography page. Ultron appeared on the image. Meet James S. Ultron, 29. American-born son of Sokovian refugees. Bruce introduced. Moved around US for most of his childhood, never stayed in one place too long. Went to UCLA at 16, on a full ride, double majoring in engineering and philosophy. Finished that and his master's 3 years later. Went on a world trip, volunteering at various places for several years before going back to the US. Worked on a PhD at Columbia specializing on robotics. His parents went to visit him in New York during the Chitauri invasion. Only he made it. That is a lie. Steve said. Ultron is a robot. You and Stark created him. Not according to this. Bruce said, looking at the screen. There are documents for his parents, passports, hospital records, a visa for his world trip, childhood pictures, a yearbook photo, chat records with his classmates. There is an editorial piece written by him at the Daily Bruin, and his name is on peer-reviewed papers. Heck, there are people at Columbia who have stories on their social media with him. He's an AI, so he could have faked the records. Clint said. That doesn't explain this. Bruce said, and switched the channel again to the American news. A female reporter was interviewing a professor at the University of Columbia. James is a very driven and passionate young man, the man spoke. He worked with me for the past 2 years on mind control. Clint asked, watching the interview. Probably. The press have been digging up on him and have interviewed people that apparently knew Ultron over many years. There are more than 100 people with special, unique memories who can swear to having known the man Ultron is pretending to be. But how did he do this? Steve asked. This would have taken a lot of time. A lot of preparation. That's the scary thing. Bruce said. All this time, he has been fighting us, hiding, building his army, creating a political movement, and controlling hundreds of people to create the perfect identity. And we never knew anything. We still didn't know anything. We assumed he was making plans and working towards something, but all of this. Since the very beginning. Clint said. Bruce returned the channel to the Sokovian press conference. We aren't just 1 or 2 steps behind. We were never on the same road to begin with. What about the stolen vibranium? Johannesburg? Kathmandu? Kidnapping pots? Steve asked. Minor goals. Could be distractions, even. Clint answered. This guy, he pointed at Ultron on the screen, has had his eye on the prize this whole time. Everything that doesn't fit has probably been about something that he wouldn't mind losing or something that would keep us occupied. But what's the prize? Because this is not about world domination anymore, Bruce said. The news cycle about dictators abdicating came to his mind. It couldn't be that it had always been the same, could it? World peace, Steve said. What? Asked Clint. World peace, he repeated. Ultron told us himself. This has always been about world peace. Nothing else. But what about the robot army? Bruce asked. Where does that come in? Maybe he is using to threaten governments, I don't know, Steve said. But Stark might. What's his ETA? Half an hour, tops, Clint said. Nat, Jarvis, and the twins are with him. The twins? Steve asked. Why were the kids coming? Ultron popped in at the tower a while ago. Stark doesn't trust them to stay there any longer, but he couldn't hand them to S.H.I.E.L.D., so with him they come. And Thor? Still in New Mexico, Bruce answered. He said he can't interfere in Midgard politics. And how this seemed like politics, Steve couldn't understand. Yes, Ultron was rallying behind a movement. Yes, he spoke of world peace. But this was a robot pretending to be a human. This wasn't a man preparing for a protest. This was a machine whose whole personality was a lie. For the sake of his goal, he mind-controlled and killed people, and threatened governments until they surrendered to him. They couldn't trust someone like that. How did that happen? Clint asked, gesturing at the screen. The news anchors were reviewing footage of the Sokovian president was placing a Medal of Honor of some kind around James Ultron's neck. Sokovia has bad history with the neighbors, Bruce explained. He had been following the local news quite carefully the last few hours. 5 years ago, one of its counties was annexed and border skirmishes and acts of sabotage have been going on ever since. The country has been in a semi-state of emergency from the time they left the Soviet bloc, but things became really desperate these last few years. However, they haven't lost a single soldier to border patrol or foreign terrorists in 2 weeks. Ultron did that. To quote President Melnick, the country has never been safer, and it's all thanks to this patriotic man. As we can see, Robert, Ultron is now a recipient of the Sokovian Medal of Honor, the first time any American, the English reporter explained alongside the ceremony. Isn't it a bit soon to receive a medal, no matter what he did? That's why I'm watching this, Bruce said. I don't know why he would need to do this. His name is already of international fame. Showing favor to one country isn't going to help his reputation. It might even harm it. The video ended, to show a panel of reporters and local politicians discuss the ramifications of this move. Ultron should reach the memorial right about now. Rumor is that he is holding a speech. Like the first? Clint asked. Maybe, Bruce said. So, what are we going to do? The rest of the team isn't here yet, and he'll grounded us. Technically, we are not supposed to do anything, Clint said. Steve stayed quiet for a moment, before deciding. Let's go on the ground. To watch Ultron? Bruce asked. Cap, we can't do anything. I know. He didn't know how to explain this, but something was telling him to go. I have a bad feeling. Bruce and Clint exchanged a gaze before the latter shrugged. Fine, let's do it. Bruce nodded, getting up. On board a S.H.I.E.L.D. jet, on the way to Sokovia. How long until we are there? Wanda asked. 20 minutes, the widow answered. Anxious? Angry, his sister said. Pietro grabbed her hand to silently ask her to quiet down. They shouldn't talk to the widow. It was pure luck that she didn't learn about what they did in Johannesburg last time, and that only because she had been far more interested to learn about their loyalties instead. Talking to a widow was suicide. Everyone who had ever been in Hydra knew that. What about you, kid? The widow asked him. How are you feeling? Fine, Pietro said, trying to keep his answers as short as possible. He didn't even try to refuse being addressed as a kid. The last time he did that, she had latched onto that opening all smiling and understanding, and taken everything all back to his parents, leaving him all flayed and open, such that, by the end, he wished she had stabbed him. It would have hurt less. Fine. We'll be seeing Ultron soon. You sure you feel just fine? She asked. He nodded. She smiled. Come on, Red. Give the kids a break. Stark shouted as he came in. The widow stopped staring him down, and turned to face her teammate, an eyebrow raised in question. Ultron sought them out, barely a few hours ago, and we have no idea why. Aren't you curious to hear what they spoke about? We didn't speak with him. Wanda interrupted, probably still enraged at the way that encounter ended. He hadn't shared with her how different it had been for him. We fought. He knocked us out. The widow looked at his sister first, then at him. Is that so? She asked. Pietro nodded. Yes. I'm sure it is. She said, then turned to Stark again. She didn't believe them, no. She didn't believe him. Obviously, that conversation wasn't over. Just on pause. Ultron's speech starting soon. Right now, actually. Stark said, handing over new earbuds to her. Cap is at the memorial, with the others, watching it live. He wants us to stay in contact, just in case. What about us? Pietro asked, before Wanda could. He wanted to listen in. He had to. Stark produced 2 new pairs. For the record, I don't agree with this, he said as he handed them over. But Cap gave it a green light, so who am I to disagree? It's not like I'm the one who designs everything and pays for everything else. Oh wait, I am. Pietro ignored his chatter and put on the earbuds. There were more important things right now than fighting with Stark. Cap. Stark spoke as they walked to the viewing room. How's Junior doing? Pietro heard the captain sigh. The Sokovian president is still speaking, Tony. Then added. You still haven't told us anything about your conversation with Ultron. No more secrets, when we are back. You'll scold me very fiercely, got it? Stark. Don't tell me. SHIELD will be put me on timeout. Stark fake gasped. Rogers took a deep breath, then quietly said. I hate you. Damn it. I thought I got it. Stark groaned. Don't tell me, the widow said, realization dawning on her features. Who's in? Clint. You started this, didn't you? What? What are you guys talking about? Rogers asked. Hawkeye coughed. There's a small bet going on. A bet? They are betting on whether Stark can make you curse, Steve, Romanoff explained. And I can't believe how difficult it is. Stark added. Haven't managed it even once. If this continues, I'll owe Legolas a new pointy stick launcher. Thanks in advance, man. Hawkeye said. I can't believe this. Rogers groaned. Hearing their banter, Pietro felt weird, not bad weird, but just weird. He hadn't imagined the Avengers being like this. He exchanged a gaze with his sister, who also looked surprised and unsure how to react. They entered the room, the red android waiting next to the holographic screens. Steve, he's starting. Banner said, finally bringing them back on point. Pietro sat down beside Wanda, feeling both curious and worried. He didn't know what Ultron's plan was. He didn't even know when he was supposed to act, just that he had to stick with Stark and would realize when it was the right time by himself. For now, he stared as the channel changed and saw a tall, blonde man on the podium. Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to say, Ultron started in English. Jarvis, did you start the feed already? Stark asked, looking confused. No, sir, the android said. I believe Ultron has just commandeered the streaming channels, as he did during his first announcement. Is it like this everywhere, Friday? He continued. The feminine voice in the walls answered. Yes, boss. Uninterrupted, mandatory, worldwide live streaming. Your boy there, the widow suddenly said. Really likes his audience, doesn't he? Stark hummed absent-mindedly, still in thought. Oh yes, obviously. Pietro watched as the widow tensed for a moment at his words before relaxing fully on the sofa. He looked at Stark, worried, though not for Stark, never for Stark, about what this meant. Pietro had assumed Stark was keeping his wish to protect Ultron secret, but didn't he just reveal to the worst of spies what he thought of their relationship by accepting her choice of phrasing? Was it not meant to be a secret? It meant something to the widow, after all. My name is James Ultron. The speech continued, so Pietro pushed other thoughts aside and turned to the screen. The others probably did the same, for it was silent on the jet for quite some time. Hearing Ultron speak, he really hoped that the robot was right. That he could do the things he promised Anne. Today is the day when humanity achieved world peace, Ultron said, and curses exploded in Pietro's ears. No way, Hawkeye said. Is he telling the truth? Rogers asked. Stark, is what he is saying true? I am checking right now. Give me a moment. Stark said. FRA, could you? Pietro didn't listen to the rest of his words. World peace. Those words kept echoing in his mind, and he just listened, disbelieving. World peace. It wasn't real. Everyone said so. It was just some unrealistic dream and peace. Everywhere. Which meant no more wars. No more missiles falling on top of homes. No more going to sleep in the midst of air bombings, wondering whether you would ever be able to wake up again. He did it. Ultron did it. He didn't lie. He promised. And he didn't lie. Pietro was roused from his thoughts as Wanda stood up. Is it true? She shouted, just like he wished to shout. Is Ultron telling the truth? She asked, sounding hysterical. He felt hysterical. Shocked, terrified, hopeful, hysterical. Stark looked at them concerned. They had probably discussed this, but Pietro and Wanda had been stuck inside their heads, disbelieving. The widow softened her tone and answered, warm and comforting. Likely fake. He's telling the truth, Wanda. Oh. Wanda said when hearing this, and the fight suddenly left her, plopping down on the divan like the strings keeping her straight had been cut. Oh, Pietro wanted to say, too, but his throat felt too tight and his tongue too thick, and he couldn't remember how to use his voice. In silence, they continued to watch Ultron speak. World hunger. Thirst. Epidemics. Corruption. Discrimination. Injustice. Ultron listed, and Pietro wondered. Could he do that? Could he fix that? Could they change things? Just like with war, could they make things better? I dared to dream. Do you? Ultron asked. I do, Pietro wanted to answer. I do. I do. I do. I do. Pietro didn't understand what happened until the screaming started. On the screen, the crowd rushed away from the podium, as the man who made world peace happen fell down. As he fell, Pietro felt vomit at the back of his throat, even though he knew it had to be an act. An act he hadn't known about. Ultron's body was displayed at an angle, and Pietro's new mantra of, "It's not real. It's not real," was the only thing keeping him from regurgitating his lunch. The camera that was still streaming had to have been pushed down and broken because, after a loud noise, the screen turned black. Steve, what's happening? The widow asked. Sniper, Rogers answered. I see him. I'm in pursuit. Jarvis and I are suiting up. We'll be there in a moment. Stark said. And us? Wanda asked. You kids stay here. Where it's safe. Stark said. But we can help, his sister insisted. That was an assassination, the man continued, but Pietro interrupted him. We can evacuate the people who were at the memorial monument. Help them get away faster. Okay, Stark agreed, sounding defeated. But no fighting. That's not something you can, Wanda refuted, but Pietro grabbed her and ran them away from the room, even as Stark's AI began the jet's descent. Pietro. Wanda said, questioning. No time, he said, the sound of Captain America fighting the assassin in his ears. Buck? Rogers suddenly said. Bucky, stop. Cap, what are you doing? Hawkeye shouted. What's going on? Stark asked. Rogers just took off, he said. Wasn't he fighting with the assassin? He was. But it seems he knows him or something, he then addressed the captain. Rogers, where are you, man? But instead of an answer, they heard a popping sound and then silence. Rogers. Hawkeye shouted. Can you hear me? What happened? Cap just took off the earbuds, Stark said. What? Pietro was curious about their discussion since Captain America seemed to be going AWOL, but, he shook his head. He should just stick to the plan. Where the hell is he? Barton cursed, just as Tony entered the Quinjet. Rogers? How would I know? Weren't you with him? Not Rogers. Ultron. Barton looked far more frustrated than before. Tony frowned, wondering what had happened to make him so. "What's got you all worked up, Katniss?" he asked. "Someone is playing with our minds, and I am sick of it," Barton said. "Ah, mind tricks. That was a big no-no for Mr. Itostowich and I liked it." "Did Ultron make use of the Mind Stone?" Jarvis asked. "Oh, this is not the magical kind," Barton said, throwing several pictures at them. Tony grabbed two, but Jarvis caught the rest, since Tony didn't seem fully up to the task. He looked at the pictures and... Was that Ultron? "Sir, Barf equipment can," Jarvis started to address his same thoughts, when Barton interrupted. "No fancy science here. Just a plain old corpse." Tony looked back at the pictures. A young man, white, blonde, obviously in his late 20s, laid on the ground, a gunshot wound on his temple, blood sprayed on parts of his hair and skin. He looked like Ultron. Too much like Ultron. But Ultron was an AI. Not human. Not alive like. Tony stared at Jarvis' living body. "No." He faced Barton. "This picture had to be faked somehow. I want to see the body," Tony said. "Local police is dealing with it, right now. Have fun. Maybe if you show up in your armor, Iron Man can get a backstage pass," he said, but he probably saw Tony's determination to actually go and coerce the police to give him access, so he added. "Stark, Rogers, and I were the first on the stage once the gunshot was heard. I checked. It was a real body. No tech. No magic. Still warm, but no pulse. And you are a forensic expert now?" Tony argued. "He might as well be," Romanoff said from behind, having just come in. "Hello, boys. I just dropped off the kids at the memorial." "The twins?" Barton asked, though it seemed fairly obvious. Probably some different question, like weird spy shit that meant a lot more in fewer words. Or just plain Barton and Romanoff. They got on like a house on fire, after all. "They wanted to help evacuate the citizens," she said. "That's so. Like good little heroes," she continued. "Where's Steve?" "He lost sight of the assassin in the city," Barton said. "Searching for him right now. Apparently, an old acquaintance or something, because Cap turned on the mic for a moment and asked me not to approach him." Romanoff hummed. "Back to Ultron then, how likely is it that a switch happened on stage?" "Impossible," he said. "There was not enough time. In addition, you can't fake a mortal wound from a sniper shot like that." The man who gave that speech was the same as the one dead on the floor. "Sir," Jarvis said. "Ultron has been speaking of suicide. Is it possible?" "No." Tony shut down that kind of thinking quickly. "Assassination would be quite helpful to his plans," Jarvis continued. "And although a vibranium-based body is quite invulnerable, specialized bullets could be made to." "Jarvis," Tony said. "I think you are volunteering to live the rest of your life wearing a bulletproof helmet. Am I wrong?" "Wait," Barton said. "Ultron committed suicide via assassination?" "No," both Stark and Romanoff said. "Ladies first, Red," Tony said, hoping that she had a logical reason for her response, instead of Tony's panic-stricken hope/gut feeling. She raised an eyebrow at him, knowing that he actually had no explanation prepared, but continued. "Assassination is a huge boon for Ultron. But not so soon. Not like this. His organization, whatever it is not ready. He doesn't have a close circle of followers, who can work independently of him, and make use of the wave his unjust death would bring. This was hurried. Either unplanned or not planned well due to constraints we are not aware of." The sound of hurried steps, coming in, stopped Tony from starting a tirade against the spy. "Sorry, I'm late, guys." Banner entered with a file in his hands. "Just got the pre-preliminary autopsy report." "Pre-preliminary?" Tony asked. "They don't complete and release the actual preliminary one until 24 hours have passed. This was more of an unofficial first notes, if anything, since their president wanted to see some results." Banner said. "I just, asked for a copy and got one from the officer in charge." "They gave it to you just like that? In Sokovia?" Barton asked, and Tony kinda got it. He had been here for only an hour, and man, did the locals make it very obvious how much they hated Americans. "I might have," and here he looked embarrassed and somewhat sad. Might have been recognized as the Hulk and not, corrected them when they started to panic, thinking I was going to do something. That shut everyone up for a bit before Romanov said. So, what does it say? Oh, it's definitely murder. 'Cause of death, it says a shot to the temple by a 7.62 NATO. Banner said. I don't speak Sokovian, so that's all I managed to get translated so far. Good ammunition for designated marksman rifles. Romanov said. Though specifically created for sniper rifles. It's not murder. Tony insisted. Ultron is not dead. Whether intentional or not. It was intentional. No doubts about that. Romanov said. The victim is a body double. A decoy. Barton said. But he sounded too much like Ultron. The speech, the movements, everything. That's because we either have been seeing a body double every time he makes an announcement, or Ultron based his political persona after an actual person. He copied their face and voice, destroyed their records, and then mind-controlled them into giving a speech before dying into a pre-planned assassination. It was anyone's guess which theory Romanov preferred. This wasn't Ultron's plan. Tony refuted, even though it seemed quite on point for the AI. But that would mean he just killed someone. In cold blood. Cap just went after the human assassin he called Bucky. Ultron didn't just find Cap's old war body and hire him for his own assassination. We can't know for sure how he is involved, whether through mind control or payment or something else. But this is the answer that makes the most sense, Stark. But, he interrupted, only to be interrupted in return. This is my field of expertise, she insisted. I know what I'm talking about. You don't. So Ultron has been planning on ending the charade like this all along? Banner said. Since days before the first announcement, he sounded horrified. If he's alive, and hiding somewhere, preparing to take over from his decoy victim, having planned this and more, weeks in advance, while we followed after him blindly, how can we stop him? How can anyone ever stop him? We can't outthink him. Romanov agreed. Our setup is reactive, too. Barton said. We can't help but play to his tune. Ultron wants to commit suicide. Jarvis abruptly said. Pardon my interruption, but it seems you are all working under a common misconception as a result of Mr. Stark's secrecy, which, while understanding at the time, is no longer necessary. I aim to correct this. This assassination was not the work of a suicidal man. Romanov said. Ms. Romanov, Ultron is not a man. Jarvis started. I understand you are very well versed in human psychology, but your knowledge is not applicable to an artificial intelligence life form. Some of it, perhaps, but certainly not all. As a possibility earlier, you mentioned constraints we are unaware of. Ms. Potts' message is able to address that. If Sir would like to explain. Tony forced a smile at the accusing gazes sent his way. We don't have enough time for everything, but long story short, Ultron is being mind-controlled by the Mind Stone, which is under the control of the same alien who sent the Chitauri in New York. No fucking way. Barton said. Loki was sent to Asgard. Thor said he died. Loki was working with someone. He got his army from somewhere, after all. And this someone wants to attack Earth again? Romanov asked. I don't know for sure. Tony said, feeling weirdly uncomfortable under her gaze. I think you do know, she said. Cassandra was right. They have Hellenes. Not familiar with the myth. Barton said. What does it mean? It means that Stark somehow knows but cannot explain that Earth will be invaded again, only worse. Ultron also knows this. They are both trying to prevent it. Only Ultron got mind-controlled by the aliens through the scepter before he could do anything. You read up on the story? Tony asked. I did my homework. Romanov answered. How much of this is true at all? Can we even believe anything? Can we believe that Ultron is truly mind-controlled? Tony, Banner said. We didn't see a different, original Ultron. Our integration trials failed. We only met the homicidal one. His eyes are blue, Bruce. Tony said. He tried to look like me, as a kid. But I don't have blue eyes. Neither does Pepper, nor you. We have just established that he makes plans upon plans weeks in advance. Pretending to be mind-controlled could be part of his plans. He was scared, Red, he said. Something he or we did in Kathmandu changed things, and he can no longer fight against the stone like before. In LA, He told me he was running out of time. Romanov softly said. He could be playing you, using your emotions and your guilt, you know that, right? I know what I saw. I don't care what any of you think at this point. Ultron is somewhere in this godforsaken city trying to kill himself because he sees no other way to be free, and I am not about to allow that. Stark. Barton started, and then turned to the whole team, sans Rogers, who was not present. He seemed hesitant. For now, let's follow his lead. If it's mind control. Clint, Romanov said. Loki mind controlled you. You couldn't remember a thing. It was different. Ultron is not like that. We don't know that, he said. I could have been no different from me now, except for being loyal to Loki. Selvig built a portal under mind control, after all. It certainly didn't turn us into brainless zombies. Romanov gave a resigned sigh. Okay, Stark. I'm in. Even if we agree on this, where do we go? Banner asked. We have no idea where he is. And how do we save him? Barton asked. It doesn't seem like knocking him out would work. With regard to the first question, Jarvis said. I might have an answer. Everyone turned and looked at him, waiting. The Novi Grad Church, at the center of the city, he said. The abandoned one? Banner asked. We went there the first time. Ultron had left. My younger brother likes efficiency and hates to waste resources. Jarvis said, reminding Tony of that stupid search for the AI in LA, when he had actually been in his own backyard the whole time. The most dangerous place can sometimes be the safest. Romanov said. We can start there and then search outwards in the city. If he is still here. Don't jinx it, Nat. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.